House is preparing for a high-stakes summit in Switzerland. American and Chinese negotiators set to meet on trade. The president is predicting de-escalation after announcing a trade breakthrough with the UK yesterday, and more deals could be coming down the pike. Madeline Rivera, she is live at the White House for us. Hi, Maddie.
Good morning, Dana. The president is applying new pressure on China even as he strikes an optimistic tone. The president saying on Truth Social this morning, China should open up its market to the USA, would be so good for them. Closed markets don't work anymore. We'll see how China responds to that. China's spokesperson for foreign affairs said earlier this week to pressure or coerce China in whatever way simply does not work. But China might be happy to hear this. The president is suggesting he could lower the 145% tariffs on China. He says on Truth Social, 80% tariff on China seems right. Up to Scott B., referring, of course, to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who said in the past the current tariffs on China are unsustainable.
My sense is that this will be about de-escalation, not about the big trade deal. But we've got to de-escalate before we can move forward.
The White House eager to tout victories after weeks of negotiating trade deals. They say that framework agreement struck with the UK will open up a $5 billion opportunity for American exports as the UK takes in more goods like beef and ethanol. The 10% baseline tariff that the president imposed on almost every country last month, that will stay in place, but the president is cutting back on tariffs on steel, aluminum, and cars.
80 years ago, the UK troops and American troops walked hand in hand and liberated Europe. And it's symbolic that the liberation from the trade war that's being waged against America starts today with this great deal between the UK and the United States.
And this comes ahead of the president's trip to the Middle East next week, where he is expected to talk about Russia, Ukraine, and potentially some economic investments as well.
I mean, there's one thing. If the Pope hit the ground running, the president has been running since January 20th at noon. Thank you so much, Maddie.
Not a yes, sir. Not a follower. Fit the box, fit the mold, have a seat for you. Pick a number. I was lightning before the thunder.
Thunder, thunder.
Lightning, then the thunder.
We're just having a good time this Friday. Just wrapped the show, and my producers screamed at me, you know what? The White House is going to be on time. So we're going to see. Here's the live shot of the White House press dais. And to dais, we have some breaking news. Oh, yes. News that broke in our short break. Shout out to the chat. Freaking love the chat. Pop up the chat. Ashley, can you grab? I want comments on screen the entire time. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to get to this breaking news. It's so important. We just heard from Ed Martin. I told you that we've been reaching out all morning on the morning live stream. We just heard from Ed Martin. He got back with us. Guess what he was doing? Filing some paperwork. With the U.S. Marshals. And guess what Ed Martin just told us? Ed Martin has confirmed to our show exclusively that the feral left-wing lib sociopath who spit on him live during a Newsmax interview will be charged and is in the process of being arrested, and that U.S. Marshals know who she is and are hunting her down. She's been identified, and she will be arrested and charged under 18 U.S. Code 111, meaning she will face potentially 20 years in prison. Why don't we put up that code, shall we? Ladies and gentlemen, let's go. 18 U.S. Code 111, assaulting, resisting, impeding certain officers or employees. You're not allowed to do this to a federal officer. Here we go. Whoever in commission of any act described in this section uses deadly or dangerous weapon to cause danger, but who fails to do so by any reason defective component, inflicts bodily injury, shall be filed under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years, or both. She faces millions potentially in legal fees and filings, and this is your breaking news. Yes. Here's your breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. This is justice. Of course, what you can see in the clip here, if we have the clip, again, we're watching the monitors closely. We won't miss Karoline Leavitt one little bit. What you'll hear in the clip is that she identifies Ed Martin. She says, "You're Ed Martin!" And then she spits on him and assaults him. Here we go.
Good. And so we need to get really focused. How you doing? Oh, whoa.
You are a disgusting man.
And she yanks her dog's neck. She spits on him.
That's right.
She announced that they had to bleep that because she was cursing. Newsmax can't broadcast that, right? You get penalties if you broadcast F-bombs. She comes up and she says, "You're effing Ed Martin." That means that she knowingly assaulted the federal official. She needs to get the 20 years. You must have. I need the names. I need to know everything about it. Where does she work? We're going to do a number. We're going to do a number on this one, okay? We're already delivering results here. We have contacted the FBI. Trust me, there are a number of good people on the case here. We have great assurances that she is going to have a very bad life. Very bad decision. This is what happens with animals when they're when they're not in control of themselves, right? SSRIs, medications, makes people go insane. This is no way to live. You don't want to live in a society with these people. And ladies and gentlemen, Karoline Leavitt taking the press dais right now. Here she goes in slow-mo for a second.
Good to see all of you.
There
Happy
we go.
Friday.
So good news, and here's some
The
more good
president
news.
looks forward to embarking on his historic return to the Middle East, visiting Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates next week, where he will focus on strengthening ties between our nations. 8 years ago, President Trump's first trip was to this same region of the world, where he introduced his bold peace through strength foreign policy strategy. On that trip, the president laid out his goal of eradicating terrorism and extremism in the region, which he successfully accomplished over the course of his administration with the total defeat of ISIS and the historic signing of the Abraham Accords. Now, 8 years later, President Trump will return to re-emphasize his continued vision for a proud, prosperous, and successful Middle East, where the United States and Middle Eastern nations are in cooperative relationships and where extremism is defeated in place of commerce and cultural exchanges. This trip ultimately highlights how we stand on the brink of the golden age for both America and the Middle East, united by a shared vision of stability, opportunity, and mutual respect. The president greatly looks forward to visiting with our brave men and women in uniform at our U.S. Air Base in Qatar throughout this trip. Yesterday, President Trump demonstrated the art of the deal and secured a historic trade agreement, despite all of the naysayers who said no deals were coming. That, of course, turned out to be untrue. On the 80th anniversary of Victory Day for World War II, President Trump announced a great deal that provides American companies unprecedented access to the UK markets while bolstering U.S. national security. This trade deal will massively expand U.S. market access in the United Kingdom, creating a $5 billion opportunity for new exports for U.S. farmers, ranchers, and producers. This includes more than $700 billion in ethanol exports and $250 million in other agricultural products like good old American beef. The deal commits the United States and United Kingdom to work together to enhance industrial and agricultural market access and strengthens American competitiveness. Importantly, the deal also ensures streamlined customs procedures for U.S. exports. The UK will also be purchasing $10 billion of American-made Boeing planes as part of the deal. A trade agreement like this between the United States and the United Kingdom was being worked on for many years, but continued to prove elusive. But because of President Trump's bold negotiating approach, he got it done. All of this happened because of President Trump's implementation of powerful tariffs to end the era of economic surrender and rebalance America's trading agreements. American workers and companies are the best in the world, and they finally have a president who has their backs, fights for them, and delivers good deals that puts them first. This is just the first of many trade deals to come. Get ready for more historic deals and our country to boom like never before. On that note, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Ambassador Jamieson Greer will meet with the lead representatives on economic matters from the People's Republic of China over the weekend in Switzerland. As President Trump has said, the United States and China have been talking for some time over the course of the administration, and now teams from both countries will meet in person to continue discussions. You can be certain that President Trump and his trade team will ensure we work to achieve the best deal possible for America. In other news, the Trump administration just announced a new incentive for illegal aliens living in the United States to self-deport. Eligible illegal aliens who now use the CBP Home app to self-deport will receive a clear, safe way to leave the United States. Their plane tickets home may be paid for, and they will receive a $1,000 stipend once we have confirmation that they have left our country. This new feature will allow illegal aliens to have a planned departure out of the country and to leave as soon as possible in a dignified way. If illegal aliens make the right decision here and submit their intent to depart through the CBP Home app and pass extensive vetting, they will be temporarily deprioritized for ICE detention and enforcement action before their scheduled departure. And leaving voluntarily in this matter may improve their legal immigration options in the future. This initiative will also save massive amounts of money for American taxpayers. Voluntary departures are much more cost-effective than traditional removals. By deploying the CBP Home app in this new way, President Trump is aiming to reduce the need for costly arrests, detentions, and court proceedings. Currently, the average cost of traditional removal is more than $17,000 per illegal alien. Our projections estimate that the use of the CBP Home app will massively reduce that financial burden by approximately 70%, so taxpayer dollars can be redirected and our brave immigration law enforcement officers can focus on removing the most violent illegal aliens hiding in our communities. Finally, it was announced this morning that First Lady Melania Trump secured a $25 million investment in President Trump's budget to provide housing and support for youth transitioning out of foster care. And in recognition of the 7th anniversary of Mrs. Trump's Be Best initiative, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development allocated funds toward the agency Foster Youth to Independence program. Yesterday, Mrs. Trump hosted a special celebration of military mothers with the president, bringing together 150 military moms from around the country to recognize their service, not just in their home, but for our country. For those of you who were there at the events yesterday, like I did, I have no doubt you will join me in recognizing how truly special those moments were. So let's get to questions. Here in our new media seat today is Andrew Egger, the White House correspondent for The Bulwark. The Bulwark is a new media company launched in 2019 with hundreds of thousands of readers on Substack and more than 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Andrew, please kick us off. And thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Caroline. The president posted another ad this week for his Trump meme coin. The group that's running that coin is encouraging people to buy in order to win a dinner this month with the president. Why is the president planning to attend a dinner for the top investors in his coin?
Look, the president is abiding by all conflict of interest laws. The president has been incredibly transparent with his own personal financial obligations throughout the years. The president is a successful businessman, and I think, frankly, it's one of the many reasons that people reelected him back to this office.
There are at least some people who are buying this coin who seem to view it as an opportunity to influence the president's views. There was a logistics company this week that said they would buy $20 million in the coin in order to advocate for free trade between the U.S. and Mexico. If buyers are buying for that reason, are they wasting their money?
Look, I can assure you the president acts with only the interests of the American public in mind, putting our country first and doing what's best for our country, full stop. That's his intention, and that's what he's focused on. Kristen, good to see you here today. Welcome back.
Caroline, thank you. I'm glad to be back. So on those China talks, what does President Trump expect to come out of those talks? And is he going to be disappointed if his team can't secure a deal?
Well, look, the president is very confident in his Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, and of course, Ambassador Jamieson Greer, who has played an instrumental role in all of these trade negotiations as well. I think yesterday's success, the announcement of a trade deal with the United Kingdom, is a great first step. Again, many said in this room it couldn't be done. Now we are moving forward with many other countries. We're talking to dozens of our trading partners around the world. But of course, China is a major country, a major player in this space. And the president has said, and he's right, China needs the United States of America. They need our markets. They need our consumer base. And Secretary Bessent knows that he's going to Switzerland this weekend with the full support and confidence and trust of the president here at home. Jack.
Thanks very much, Caroline. Two questions. First, can you give us an update on U.S. efforts to mediate or have an impact on the conflict between India and Pakistan?
Sure, I absolutely can. This is something that the Secretary of State and of course now our national security advisor as well, Marco Rubio, has been very much involved in. The president has expressed he wants to see this de-escalate as quickly as possible. He understands these are two countries that have been at odds with one another for decades, long before President Trump was here in the Oval Office. However, he has good relationships with the leaders of both countries, and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, I spoke to him just yesterday. He has been in constant communication with the leaders of both countries, trying to bring this conflict to an end.
Just one other question. Yesterday, we saw the news of the new Pope. Before Pope Leo became Pope Leo, there were some critical comments that he made about President Trump and about Vice President Vance on his then X account. Does the White House have any reaction to those comments?
The president made his reaction to Pope Leo's announcement yesterday very clear. He is very proud to have an American Pope. I think it was a surprise to everyone. I saw the news media was surprised to report on that yesterday, but it's a great thing for the United States of America and for the world, and we are praying for him.
Thanks, Caroline. The president has been pretty firm on keeping these 145% tariffs in place on Chinese imports. Today, via Truth Social, he said that he'd be possibly open to lowering those to 80%. Why the change, and how did the president land on 80?
The president still remains with his position that he is not going to unilaterally bring down tariffs on China. We need to see concessions from them as well. And again, that's part of the reason that Secretary Besson is going to talk to his Chinese counterparts this weekend to start those discussions in person. As for the 80% number, that was a number the president threw out there, and we'll see what happens this weekend. And always in the effort of transparency, I'm sure you'll hear directly from the Treasury Secretary or the president after those negotiations conclude. Jackie.
Thank you, Caroline. Why did the White House announce this deal with the UK before all of the details were finished?
That's not true, actually. I saw the fact sheet. I saw the deal as well before the president brought all of you in the Oval Office in the effort of transparency. You had the president and the prime minister on the phone talking to all of you directly about how this was a great deal, a phenomenal deal, and discussions will continue. But as I spoke to our ambassador Greer yesterday, this is how trade deals work. You set an initial agreement, you set the framework, you set up the deal, and then of course, T's have to be crossed and I's have to be dotted. But this deal is a good deal, and the numbers are determined, and all of the market access that I just discussed will remain.
Does that mean that the 10% baseline is going to still be there at the end when all of the other details are ironed out?
The president is committed to the 10% baseline tariff, not just for the United Kingdom, but for his trade negotiations with all other countries as well.
Permanently, even after the deals are done, like that is going to remain.
The president is determined to continue with that 10% baseline tariff. I just spoke to him about it earlier. Stephen.
Thank you, Caroline. I'd like to ask about New York and about a personal matter. On New York, the mayor, Eric Adams, is here today. Could you tell us anything more about the visit, who initiated it, what they're talking about? And also, is there any comment from the White House on the air traffic control issues in Newark?
All I will say on Mayor Eric Adams is that he requested a meeting with the president, and the president was willing to take it. If the president wishes to discuss his private meeting afterwards, I will let him do that himself. Yes, I'm glad you asked about the FAA. There was a glitch in the system this morning, especially at Newark Airport. As you all know, I spoke to the Department of Transportation. That glitch was caused by the same telecoms and software issues that were raised last week. Everything went back online after the brief outage, and there was no operational impact. DOT and the FAA are working to address this technical issue tonight to prevent further outages, as well as install new fiber from Newark Airport to Philadelphia. And the goal is to have the totality of this work done by the end of the summer. I want to add that this outage at Newark Airport speaks to why the Secretary of Transportation yesterday made a massive announcement in investing in our aviation safety and our telecom system. There's a 4-part infrastructure plan that was released by the Secretary of Transportation yesterday to improve communication, surveillance, automation, and their facilities. They want to replace the antiquated telecom systems with new fiber, wireless, and satellite technologies, replace more than 600 radars, which have gone way past their life cycle, and address runway safety. They want to build 6 new air traffic control centers for the first time since the 1960s and replace towers as well. They want to implement new modern hardware and software for all traffic facilities to create a common platform system throughout the towers. These are much needed changes. This is a very bold plan by the Department of Transportation. I think it's unfortunate that the previous administration sat in their hands and did nothing, but how grateful we are that we have a Department of Transportation and a secretary and a president who's willing to take bold action and change.
The personnel matter,
Go
Caroline,
ahead.
could I ask?
Thanks, Caroline. Just going back to India, Pakistan, can we expect President Trump to get in touch personally with the leaders of those countries to try and de-escalate this situation?
If and when that happens, we will certainly let you know. Natalie.
Thanks, Caroline. Sure. I have a question about the Middle East trip. Will any of the president's family members, like including Don Jr., Eric, or Jared Kushner, be joining him on the trip?
I am not tracking any of the president's family members joining us at this time, but of course, the first family is welcome to come. I hope they would. They're great people, great to be around, but I'm not tracking them on the manifesto.
And given that you noted he is a successful businessman, do you know if the president has any plans to meet with any of the folks involved with any of the family businesses over there, or see any of the sites that are going to be
Not to my knowledge, and let me just get to the premise of your question that both of you have raised. I think it's frankly ridiculous that anyone in this room would even suggest that President Trump is doing anything for his own benefit. He left a life of luxury and a life of running a very successful real estate empire for public service, not just once, but twice. And again, the American public reelected him back to this White House because they trust he acts in the best interest of our country and putting the American public first. This is a president who has actually lost money for being president of the United States. I don't remember these same type of questions being asked of my predecessor about a career politician who was clearly profiting off of this office. That is not what President Trump does. And this White House holds ourselves to the highest of ethical standards. Phil.
Thank you. There's this Reuters report that the U.S. is in talks with Israel about an American-led post-war administration in Gaza. Is that accurate? Are these talks ongoing?
We are in constant communication and dialogue with our counterparts and our allies and friends in Israel. Ron Dermer was here at the White House yesterday meeting with members of President Trump's team. As for the situation in Gaza, the president and his entire national security team have made it very clear we want to see the hostages released from Gaza. That is a priority for this administration. As for what that looks like, and even moving beyond that, I'm not going to get into the details of plans that frankly may or may not have even been proposed, but I can emphasize what the president holds closest in his heart right now, and that's the release of all of the hostages in Gaza.
And then there's been some conservative pushback to some of these the salt tax cap. For instance, Majority Leader Steve Scalise said that bringing back the state and local tax deduction would essentially mean, quote, 45 states are subsidizing 5 states that have very high taxes imposed by leftist governors. Is he wrong? Is it fair to ask red Indiana to bail out blue New York?
Well, look, this is an ongoing discussion on the Hill. There's a lot of disagreement on Capitol Hill right now about the SALT tax proposal, and we will let them work it out. As for the tax provisions in the reconciliation bill, the priorities of this president, he has made them incredibly clear. No tax on tips for our hardworking service workers, no tax on Social Security for our well-deserving seniors who have worked their whole lives to pay into this system, no tax on overtime for hardworking Americans as well. And there's a plethora of other priorities the president wants to see in this bill. Anyone who opposes this bill will be opposing the largest tax cut in American history. They will be voting to raise taxes by the tune of $4 trillion on the middle class of this country. And we look forward to holding them accountable for that. Everyone on Capitol Hill on both sides of the aisle should be supportive of the president's tax priorities.
Follow up on that?
Go ahead. Sure. Go ahead, and then I'll go to your follow-up.
Thanks, Caroline. So I want to follow up on the Truth Social post. So the president's saying 80% tariffs could come down. Just an announcement would be enough to lower those tariffs. Is that what he's looking for from the Chinese?
Well, that's not what the president said. He said that an 80% number may sound good to him, but again, he's in constant contact with our Secretary of Treasury, who will be leading these negotiations this weekend.
And historically, the Chinese have made the meeting itself a win. What does a win look like out of these meetings for the president this weekend?
A good deal for the American worker and the American people. Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. Yeah, back to the reconciliation bill. Can you just clarify the president's position, though, a little bit specifically on the tax issue? Because in his Truth Social post, he said this morning that he would accept even a tiny tax increase for the rich, but then says Republicans probably shouldn't do it, but I'm okay if they do it. So what is it that he wants? Does he want them to increase the tax rates?
The president wants tax cuts, the largest tax cuts in history. He wants to extend his historic tax cuts from 2017, and he wants to see all of the other tax priorities priorities that I just laid out for you included in this bill as well. As for the policy proposal you're talking about, the president has said he himself personally would not mind paying a little bit more to help the poor and the middle class and the working class in this country. I think, frankly, that's a very honorable position. But again, these negotiations are ongoing on Capitol Hill, and the president will weigh in when he feels necessary.
Encourage them to have a higher bracket for top earners.
The president has made his personal position on this matter clear. Michael.
The
president's in constant communication with leaders on the Hill.
Ahead of the president's trip to the Middle East, he's mentioned he wants to rename the Persian Gulf the Gulf of Arabia. Iran is now saying that doing so will bring the wrath of all Iranians. Can you talk about the support that the Gulf of Arabia has in the region and why this is important to the president?
Well, first of all, the president has said he hasn't made a determination yet. That was in the news that you guys all asked him about it, and he said he wasn't quite sure. So he hasn't made a definitive decision on that yet.
And secondly, Karoline, the president has shown support for South African refugees that are coming to the United States next week. Can you talk about what these refugees are fleeing and why this is a priority for the administration?
Well, the president has actually signed an executive order on that matter. My office can get it back to you, Michael. But this group in South Africa has faced racial persecution. In fact, the government there has vowed to take away their farmland that they own. And so the president has talked significantly about this. As for further details on refugee claims and asylum claims, I would defer you to the State Department.
Can I follow up on that?
Go ahead. No, in front of you.
Thanks,
Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. Does the administration have any response to the news today that a federal judge has ordered the immediate release of Ramesa Ozturk from detention, and particularly his comments that the government submitted no evidence other than an op-ed that Ozturk wrote last year?
I will have to check in with the Department of Homeland Security on that particular case, but I think our overall feeling we've made quite clear that lower level judges should not be dictating the foreign policy of the United States, and we absolutely believe that the president and the Department of Homeland Security are well within their legal rights to deport illegal immigrants. As for visa revocations, the Secretary of State has the right to do that as well. It is a privilege, not a right, to come to this country on a visa. But I'll check in on the specific case. My office will get you details.
Sure. Caroline, yesterday the administration appears to have started dismantling the Consumer Product Safety Commission. This is the federal agency, an independent one that does recalls and is responsible for product safety. Does the administration not believe that it's important, to keep toys and cribs? I mean, you're a young mom, off of the product of the market.
It's a federal agency within which branch? It's the executive branch. Who's the head of the executive branch? The President of the United States.
Created by Congress.
He has the right to fire people within the executive branch. It's pretty simple.
Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize. We have a very rare glitch here. Let's go. This is why we have backup feeds. Thank you.
Meetings with many people when he is there. We can certainly check at the itinerary and let you know if the FIFA president will be there next week. Frankly, I'm not quite sure, but we can certainly get you an answer. As you know, the president attended a FIFA task force meeting at the White House this week.
And on the domestic front, could you explain why the FEMA administrator was removed from his position this week?
This is a personnel matter in regards to the Department of Homeland Security, but my understanding is that this individual testified saying something that was contrary to what the president believes in the goals of this administration in regards to FEMA policy. And so, of course, we want to make sure that people in every position are advancing the administration's goals. But as for specifics, I defer you to the Department of Homeland Security. We leave it up to our great cabinet secretaries when it comes to personnel matters.
Okay.
Sure, in the back.
Thank you. Aid hasn't gone into Gaza in 10 weeks. Israel says that this is a policy to pressure Hamas in the negotiations, the ceasefire negotiations. Is this a policy that this administration supports?
The president answered this week. He said that he wants to ensure that aid can get into Gaza, but we have to do it in a responsible way to ensure it doesn't end up in the hands of terrorists. So this is something the administration is actively working on. And when we have a policy to announce on this definitively, we can certainly let you know.
Can you talk about this effort for the U.S. to take over the distribution of aid in Gaza, to exclude Israel, but also international organizations said this effort militarizes aid?
I would reject that characterization by whatever groups you are citing. Kelly.
Caroline, thank you. I want to get back to the First Lady Melania Trump dealing with foster children. That's an important component in American life to see what happens to the future of our children, particularly in foster care. Can you explain the significance of this development between the First Lady and the Housing and Urban Development?
Yes, absolutely. It's millions of dollars that will go into a program that helps these children transition out of foster care to have productive and positive lives. And I'd like to share a personal story since you asked if I may. I hope the First Lady won't mind. I was at an event in Florida last year, and I was approached by a gentleman who was a foster dad, and he had taken in, I think it was 6 or 7 foster children. And he spoke to me. He had recognized me in my work for President Trump's campaign at the time. And the little boy who was with him talked about the personal relationship that he had with First Lady Melania Trump, and the conversation she had with him, and how she really encouraged him to be the best that he could be during her first term here at the White House, and how even after she and President Trump left the White House, she kept in very close touch with this young foster child. It was a touching moment that I will never forget, and it speaks to the heart of this First Lady and the great work that she is doing for foster children. And this is certainly a very big announcement that I know our Secretary of Housing and Urban Development is in particular very excited about, and we can certainly get you all the details on that program. John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. I want to ask you about the trade deal that the president announced yesterday with the UK as it relates to the auto sector.
Sure.
The trade group that represents the big three here in the U.S. believes that it may put the big three automakers at a competitive disadvantage. What the trade group says is that it will now be cheaper to import a UK vehicle with very little American content than a US MSA with just 50% American content. What's your response to that criticism coming from this trade group?
Well, first of all, let's be clear about what the deal does. It sets a 10% rate on auto imports for the first 100 cars that are imported into the United States. 100,000 cars, thank you. That would be very few cars. 100,000 cars imported from the United Kingdom. After 100,000 vehicles, it goes back up to a 25% tariff. And as for our U.S. auto manufacturers, our auto industry, the president wants to put them on the best pedestal to compete. And by the way, if they produce vehicles right here in the United States of America, they will face no tariff at all. I would argue of any industry, the president has spent more time talking to and listening to the concerns of our auto industry here at home. He hears them. He believes in them. He wants to see them produce their vehicles here in the United States of America. This is a good deal for them too.
Is this a model for European and Asian vehicles as well, what we see coming out of the UK trade deal with the US?
Look, all of these deals are going to be tailor-made. The president has said that from the beginning. It's very apropos that the first trade deal was announced between the United States and the United Kingdom, one of our oldest and greatest allies. But each country has unique concerns and challenges. In terms of American industry, we need to open up markets in every single country. And obviously the needs are unique. So our trade team is looking at each country and the advantages that we can pursue for American industries and American workers. Sure.
Happy early Mother's Day. Oh, thank you. The president said yesterday that he would be speaking with Zelensky shortly. Did that call happen yesterday, or do we expect that to happen in the near term?
The call happened yesterday. President Zelensky called the president to tell him that the critical minerals deal had passed the parliament in Ukraine. I talked to the president about that call. He said it was very good and productive. And of course, the critical minerals deal is great for Ukraine, but also, of course, for the United States of America and our taxpayers here. It was a good call. And they also spoke about, of course, the ceasefire that the president proposed, the 30-day ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, which we know Europe is on board with, and we hope both countries will agree to.
Just on next week, do we expect President Putin, is there any chance that he could meet with Trump while he's in the region?
The president answered this yesterday. Not going to happen.
Ceasefire. Has he got any reaction from Zelensky or Putin on the proposal for ceasefire? Is he satisfied by the reaction to that proposal?
Not to my knowledge, but certainly if there is a reaction and updates, I'm sure you'll hear directly from the president.
Question, the president fired the Librarian of Congress. Why did he choose to do that?
We felt she did not fit the needs of the American people. There were quite concerning things that she had done at the Library of Congress in the pursuit of DEI and putting inappropriate books in the library for children. And we don't believe that she was serving the interests of the American taxpayer well. So she has been removed from her position, and the president is well within his rights to do that. John.
Thank you, Caroline. Happy Mother's Day as well.
Thank you.
President Trump ran on delivering the biggest tax cut in history, got over 70 million votes. Right now, you got a handful of obstructionists in the Republican conference that are saying they're not going to go along with his tax cut package. You just said those that don't will be held accountable. What is your description of being held accountable?
Well, look, I think they'll be held accountable by the voters in their respective districts if they choose to vote for a tax hike to the tune of $4 trillion, which would raise taxes to thousands of dollars per household in this country. The president has great political instincts. That's why he's back in the Oval Office, and Capitol Hill should follow his lead. As for the president, speaking of him, he will be signing executive orders later this afternoon. We are happy to provide more information on those executive orders if you wish. Thank you for the Mother's Day wishes, and happy Mother's Day to all of the moms in the room. And don't forget to call your mom this Sunday. We'll see you guys later. Have a good weekend.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the technical error. We call it the ghost in the machine. It's the ghost in the machine. And we've been live for, well, I guess we're rounding the corner on 3 hours here. And so I got a chance to jump into the chat. I always love looking out of the chat. I'm like hop into the chat. I ask people questions. And we do our very best to ask people questions and find out what the chat wants to talk about. Now, one major piece of breaking news that you have to know about. They are interning a grand jury right now and doing interviews for a grand jury for Letitia James. Now, this broke after our morning show, which the topic was Letitia James and Ed Martin. And so we have two massive breaking pieces of news. One, Ed Martin's attacker, the rabid left-wing sociopath who spit on him, has been or will be soon arrested by the U.S. Marshals and charged with 18 U.S. Code 111. Potentially, she will face 20 years in prison. And now Letitia James is having a grand jury interned for her, hopefully, prosecution. We have the breaking news on that? No, the Newsmax clip, please. Yeah, all right, thank you. Let's go.
Yesterday to Letitia James's spokesperson, and when these allegations first came to light, they did provide a prompt response alleging there was a weaponization of the justice system, some type of political payback. This time, though, her spokesperson has not responded to our requests for a comment. Back to you.
Well, we'll wait for that. Lana Austin, thank you for joining us live there. We do appreciate that. I want to bring in now Amy Robbins. She is here with us on the set. She is the host of the Amy Robbins Show. Amy, good to see you on set. How are you?
Great to see you guys, too. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we've covered the civil Trump suit, the trial that went on forever. There were so many, by the way, to keep tally of all the lawfare that we've seen. And now you have this full circle moment of what the AG accused and
okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, this is I don't. Producers, tell me if there's any further breaking news there. Grand jury subpoenas issued in James mortgage probe. Here we go.
Administration. For more on this, let's bring in Fox News Sunday anchor and chief legal correspondent Shannon Bream. So what's this case about, and does the Justice Department have a case?
So there are allegations that she did not give proper information on loan documents, possible mortgage documents about primary residence, things that would have given her a better loan system to work with. More favorable terms. She and her attorney are completely denying it. They say this is complete revenge. And listen, presumed innocent. That's a great thing about our system. And an investigation is one thing. Do you get to charges? Do you get to a trial? I don't know, but Democrats have been telling us for years, as they did when she brought charges against President Trump, no one's above the law. You got to work through the process in the system, and we'll see how far it goes with her.
So essentially, she's being charged with something very similar to what she charged Donald Trump for, and that was allegedly inflating the value of properties to get a more favorable rate. She is portraying this as more than just an issue about her.
All right. So there we go. This is all right.
Fight back and to resist any temptation for them to divide us. We're in this.
All right. Pam Bondi, charge her. Pam Bondi, charge her. The chat wants me to talk about Pam Bondi and James O'Keefe. So we're going to do that. We want to make sure that we cover these two pieces of breaking news because that was the content of the morning show. And just like yesterday, we literally have news breaking during the show about what we're talking about. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Pam Bondi. We had an entire block this morning, but we ended up speaking with Mike Rowe for 40 minutes. And here we go, James O'Keefe. Releasing video on Pam Bondi yesterday, covertly recorded, April 28th, revealing previously undisclosed information about Epstein regarding tens of thousands of videos of little kids in D.C. restaurant. So this is from James O'Keefe. And it's about a 2-minute video that he produced online. Let's put the post up and we'll watch the video. And my take on this is, I mean, it might make you angry, but we covered this video from Pam Bondi. This was a video that obviously was very important to us because Pam Bondi was asked about our reporting. I'm not saying that this is, maybe two things can be true at once. But here's what happened. Pam Bondi was standing outside of the White House and a reporter, I don't know who, I'd like to know who, a reporter said, what do you think about the Benny show? Didn't say that, but he said, what do you think about Comer? And Pam Bondi had this to say when asked. Comer, who was on our show, said, you got nothing. You got no Epstein files. You got nothing. And Pam Bondi said, no, actually, I have tens of thousands of tapes of Jeffrey Epstein and very powerful people with little children. Klein, do you have the video? Okay, let's go. It is the one of, it's the original one of Pam Bondi, please. Yeah, the original one of Pam Bondi. Okay, let's go.
Just a few days later, at 2 p.m. on May 1st, our reporter sent the AG's office the text of the recording. We asked why this detail had not been...
Sorry, guys. Listen, it's been a very interesting day. Plenty of ghosts in the machine today. All right, producers, let's please go, shall we? Let's go. Here we...
No, the FBI, the FBI, they're reviewing, there are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And there are hundreds of victims. And no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going through that. I haven't seen that statement, but I'll call him later and find out.
We were proud of that. We were proud of that. Now, we didn't know. I know James very well. I'm in communication with James. I know James super well. We didn't know that James had something totally concurrently going on with Pam Bondi, that James had a clip of Pam Bondi. Now, there was a stinger that James released about what he was about to release with Epstein. And the Prince Andrew stuff I thought was incredibly compelling. He released a royal family friend that said that Prince Andrew was a pedophile, right? Effectively. That's what he said. We played that on the show. And then we played this clip, that clip of Pam Bondi. Now, that clip of Pam Bondi, she is asked directly up front about our reporting with James Comer. That is the predicate for her answer there. And I'm not going to reveal too much here, but I just wondered if it had anything to do with James O'Keefe's teaser trailer that seemed to include a picture of Pam Bondi undercover. And ladies and gentlemen, now we know what that photo is from. The internet spun into a lot of wild speculation about what it was, and we're going to play for you right now there's the image, what this actually is, okay? So here's the reporting from James yesterday. It's about a 2-minute video. I'll play it, and then I'll have my comments on it. Let's go.
A few days later, at 2 p.m. on May 1st, our reporter sent the AG's office the text of the recording. We asked why this detail had not been disclosed to the public, but was instead being told to a random stranger at a restaurant. The Attorney General used almost the exact same language as she did with the stranger in the restaurant, language that we shared with her press office.
There are tens and thousands of videos. Yeah, and it's all with little kids. There are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn.
Now, we hesitated to publish this story, but believe, like we did yesterday, that the public has a right to know. And this one raises serious questions. On one hand, why did our country's highest law enforcement official share this information first not with the American people, but with a self-described nanny at brunch? But more importantly, why was this information held back in the first place? Does this show that a government apparatus is still working behind the scenes to protect powerful people involved in the scandal? Based upon the response to our Epstein story yesterday, it's clear that the American people want answers.
Okay. So I'm going to give you my take on this. I'm not sure if you're going to like it. But my take on this is, well, when people are saying the same thing privately as they say publicly, I like that. Well, I mean, I don't, frankly, like I don't understand the scandal exactly. Now, James says that Pam Bondi said it because of his email. I don't know. Pam is getting asked a question about our reporting, so I don't know. I'm not sure. But I can tell you this, I like it when people, again, this is why I like Trump. You hang out with Trump, and what you get at the dinner table, and we've one of my greatest honors. We've eaten McDonald's with Donald Trump on his plane, okay? I'm not saying we're his best friend, but I'm saying that we've been able to interact with Donald Trump a lot behind the scenes. Bro, that guy is the same guy as he is in front of the camera as he is behind the camera. And I view that as a huge quality for politicians and elected officials. So that's my take on this. Pam Bondi is saying the same thing that she said in a original letter that she wrote about Jeffrey Epstein. There's this letter that she wrote after the binder incident. The binder incident, as we've talked about ad nauseum here, was not great. It was a binder that was filled, that was called the Epstein files, but it was all publicly available information that had already been unredacted, but was redacted inside of the binder. It's not good look, right? Very bad. And Pam Bondi realized that there was mountains of voluminous evidence that existed about Jeffrey Epstein that she didn't have access to. So they went ahead and fired James Dennehy in charge of the Southern District of New York. And then she sends a letter. And the letter says, I want all of the Epstein videos. I want all the Epstein photos. She says it in her letter. Here it is. And so, you know, the idea that there's photos and videos of Epstein has been out in the public for a long time. We celebrated that clip of Pam Bondi on the show because it's the first time a law enforcement official has gone into detail about what those videos contain. The videos contain, well, child predation and like deep moral evils. And so whether it was our interview with James Comer, whether it was James O'Keefe's questioning of Pam Bondi about a recording where she describes the same thing, right? She described the same thing that she said on the White House lawn. And the same thing that technically is described in this letter, where she demands all videos of Jeffrey Epstein and, of course, Virginia Roberts. We played the clips a lot of times on the show. Many of the Epstein victims have come forward saying there was recordings everywhere. There are video cameras everywhere. It's all wired for sound. There's actually a quite famous clip from Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson where they talk about this. We don't got to play it, but like they've bantered about this like crazy. So that's our take on it. That's our take. You may think it's overly generous. You know, you may come to your own conclusions. That's what the show is about. But I like it when they say the same thing behind the closed doors as they say in front of the cameras or in public. And in case you're wondering about the cross-sectionality of all of this, here's Kash Patel yesterday in Congress. Now, I'll tell you this, I don't agree with what Kash Patel says here. You want to start some controversy? Kash, my boy, I like Kash a lot, but I don't agree with what he says here. What's going on? Kash says that Epstein killed himself? I want him to explain that. Somebody explain that one? That the chat might have a problem with. But here's Kash Patel saying the same thing. So I'm sorry. Listen, if you have your priors about Pam, go for it. That's what the show's about. Blow up the chat. I'm going through a segment, our B block from this morning's show that we didn't have enough time to get to because we did 40 minutes with Mike Rowe and I raged about Ed Martin too long. But the point is that we're not scared about talking about this stuff. We must talk about it. In fact, we have to. And this is my take. Cash has said before he's going after Epstein. Cash has said that there are videos. I'm not going to reveal too much, but we've known that there were videos, right? That's why we harp so hard on this topic, on the subject matter, right? You know it, because that's what all the victims say. That's what the court documents say. Clearly, the federal government has them. We've put up the photos of them raiding Epstein's home. And ladies and gentlemen, yesterday, Cash said they have videos, 2 in front of the Senate. Here it is.
Person with a brain and a beating heart.
Yes, sir.
Did Jeffrey Epstein hang himself or did somebody kill him?
Senator, I believe he hung himself in a cell in the Metropolitan Detention Center.
Are you going to release all the information about that?
Senator, we are working through that right now with the Department of Justice.
When do you think you'll have it done, Cash?
I think in the near future, sir.
Like before I die?
Senator, we've been working on that, and we're doing it in a way that protects victims and also doesn't put out into the ether information that is irrelevant for production of the public, such as CSAM.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Reid.
Thank you very
much. Okay. You know what? We'll take what we can get, right? Like we're gonna absolutely take what we can get here. What's my take on this? Well, I mean, I'm like you. Hopefully, I don't want child pornography. I don't want that out. I don't want any victims to have their lives ruined more than they have. Virginia Roberts was just freaking suicided, okay? She was just killed. Her dad says she was killed. Her lawyer says she was killed. There's like these young women, if you watch the Epstein documentaries, they're horrible. There's one on Netflix. Find it. There's an Epstein documentary on Netflix that's so awful. If you have a strong stomach, you should watch it. It's atrocious. It's called Filthy Rich. Yeah. It goes into how he goes to like trailer parks. Dude would go to trailer parks and these young women who have come from broken homes and have nothing. And he would recruit them into this lavish life. You can go watch it there. It was hard to watch, man. I couldn't get past the first couple of episodes. And what the point is that he'd go to these trailer parks, he'd cruise around, he'd send his agents, he'd send Ghislaine Maxwell to cruise around and take advantage of these poor, broken young women. And they do this how traffickers work. You know, and then he'd spin them up into his life of fame and luxury. And for the cost of doing business there, obviously, was working for him. We all know what that entailed. And so, like, no, I'm not in favor of ruining their lives more, okay? Like, I'm not in favor. I think that's immoral. But can you just, like, release the list? Like, I don't need to see any of the gory videos, right? Like, I don't need, I don't have some type of, like, there's no perversion behind any of this. I just need, like, just release, like, maybe some hard evidence of the very rich, very powerful Hollywood celebrities, heads of intelligence agencies that he was working for. Please, let's get to that in a second. Release the list of his clients, and then let's maybe see some charges. Statutes of limitations be damned. Let's like get their names out there. Okay, that's number one. All right. Number two, moving on. Number two, like what was he doing exactly? Why did the FBI keep insisting that Jeffrey Epstein belonged to Intel? And that's, I think, what's really happening here. Is there's this big time like protecting sources and methods, and they know that when they release all this is why they all go white as a sheet when you ask, because they know that they're going to destroy themselves, right? They're going to destroy these institutions. They got to run these institutions, and it's going to be the blackest, darkest, egg in the face day of these institutions. And I say, all that be damned, right? I say, screw it all, right? Like out with it. Killer Klein's loading up. Like, here we go. We keep putting it up. Benny, how did you know that he had all this video evidence? Oh, because there's photos of it, dude. Like, it's like here are the hard drives with the evidence wrapped around it. Yellow evidence tape that the special agent in charge for the FBI, Sarah O'Connor, said wasn't put there by them. So it's Epstein's wrapping his own evidence tape for his own hard drives. CDs that say nudes on them. Look at this. It's a CD that literally says nudes on it. Nude pics. Okay, well, pretty obvious there if you've been reading the tea leaves. So there you go. That's my take on it. I like it when I like it when people say the things that they mean, and when they say them in private or when they say them in public, quite frankly. There's one more clip that's got to be played here. There's one more thing. Hold on. Sending it to the producer chat. I hope we can pop it up here. We can rip this. James Patterson. He's a dude who's like a Donald Trump friend. And he's an author. And he's someone who has written books with Bill Clinton. He's somebody who's he's a member at Mar-a-Lago, for instance. And he remembers Jeffrey Epstein at Mar-a-Lago cruising, doing his influence game, Jeffrey Epstein trying to buy his way into American influence. And we talk regularly about like some of the haters. And I know there's haters in the chat. I get it. We love you. We love the chat. That's why we're doing this segment. Okay? That's why we're going there. We saw that people were calling for us to cover the story, so let's freaking go. All right? And I'm so glad that you asked this because it gives me a chance to play this.
Ever crossed paths with that?
Video that I didn't know existed. Of James Patterson, the most respected author probably living in America today, explaining the difference between Bill Clinton and Donald Trump when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein. Whereas Bill Clinton did everything he possibly could to get the goodies that Jeffrey Epstein had to offer, Donald Trump freaking banned him from his club, and we have an eyewitness here to explain. Go.
Ever crossed paths with Epstein?
You know, I didn't know who he was at the time. Right. Yeah, briefly, in one of the outside one of the restaurants, and somebody who I knew. This is Epstein, and and I didn't pay attention to it. A friend of mine down here, Tim Malloy, was a journalist down here, and he knew this story. We had done a documentary, Murder of a Small Town, and we were thinking of maybe doing another documentary. He told me the Epstein story. I said, this is insane. This billionaire and all these young girls, and I want to write a book on it. And I got a couple of investigators, because there had been rumors about Trump and President Clinton, et cetera. And there was absolutely nothing involving Trump or President Clinton with Epstein in terms of anything that I would put in the book. And I wouldn't put anything in the book that I didn't 100% believe in. And I was on a plane at one point, and the woman sitting next to me, it turned out she ran the spa at Mar-a-Lago. And I said, did you ever run into Jeffrey Epstein there? She said, oh, yes. She said he wasn't a member, but he would come. And she said he was inappropriate with the young girls. And she said, I went to Mr. Trump, and Mr. Trump banned him that day. I mean, people are nuts in terms of, and they're so adamant about the stories. They go, well, everybody must have known in town that Epstein was. I'm going, why would you think that this guy would sit there spreading rumors that he was bringing 14-year-olds to his house? I mean, seriously, do you really think somebody would do that? Oh, I have these 14-year-olds over all the time. And while we were writing the book, he got word that we were writing it, and I would get threats from his lawyers every couple of weeks.
What would they say?
Don't do this. We're going to sue you. Da 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 da. You're going to get your information wrong. And I knew we weren't. I knew we weren't because if I write a nonfiction book, I'm not going to put anything in there that I can't stand behind 100%. I know. So
I'm not going to put anything in there that I can't stand behind 100%, and I'm 100% telling you that it was Donald Trump who banned Jeffrey Epstein on the spot as soon as he heard about his degeneracy and his sickening exploits with children. Man, what a beautiful clip. Tell you what, a clip I'm glad that we found, a clip that we are going to play on this show time and time again. The difference between Trump and Clinton. Who had Epstein at the White House like a million times? Little did I know. Bill Clinton's had Epstein in the White House like 20 times. I think Jeffrey Epstein stayed in the Lincoln bedroom. You know the difference between these two guys? People are like, probably in the chat right now, maybe some people are like, wow, Donald Trump's slow walking it because he's so guilty. No, he's not. And there's a way to prove it, right? Here's the way that Clinton treated Epstein. And the way that Trump can prove, not that he needs to, but the way that the Trump administration, via Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and so on, can prove the differences between these two is that instead of protecting and palling around with the predator, pedo, they can put everybody in jail that were his clients, right? Jeffrey Epstein's already dead. We strongly believe that he was killed in prison. Ghislaine Maxwell is still alive. Boy, we could still do some things here, all right? And that's how the Trump administration proves it. Anyway, sorry for that big rampage, but hey, I read the chat, and every time that I see something, we're going to be here to cover it. It's our job to give you our takes on these things, and then to listen to yours. And that informs both of us, and that's how we build a better movement, and a movement that's going to change the country. I truly believe it. Godspeed. Have a great weekend in this, the greatest country on earth. It's always our honor to do this show with you and do the stream and to be able to make a better country. All right? It's your boy, Benny. Have a great weekend. See ya.
Not a yes, sir. Not a follower. Fit the box, fit the mold. Have a seat for you. Take a number. I was lightning before the thunder. Thunder, thunder. Lightning and the thunder. Thunder. Feel the thunder. Who do you think you are? Dreaming about being a big star.
The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest kings. And their dying legacy, media deal weeds. Soon will the Benny Show come to mind. The salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun. We sail for #1. Show come to mind. The salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun. We sail for #1. The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest king.